Welcome to the Missing Half podcast. I'm Bill Woods, your host, where we're discovering what's missing in manufacturing and B2B marketing. Today, I have a special guest. One of the co-founders of 50 Marketing, John McDowell, is sitting down with me today to talk about our story and talk about how we got here. And I guess maybe the story of how we got lost along the way, but still found ourselves to be where we are today, John. So thank you for joining me.
Always a pleasure, Bill.
So, John, you and I go back 1,000 years ago to a prior millennium. So we have many stories to tell and to share. But I guess today what we want to focus on, what we've been told by our producers and directors, is we're supposed to talk about work. We're supposed to be on our best behavior. And we're supposed to talk about kind of our founding. So I guess we have our marching orders and know what we're supposed to be doing.
We do have our marching orders. And what some of our listeners here may not know is that they are actually watching us and we can see them. So we're trying to stay focused and on subject and on task because they're kind of giving us cues and making sure that we do stay on task. So
yeah, John, before the episode started, one of the team members actually put something on my chair. I think it's some type of electrical shock device so that if I act up to it, there, I just got one, just got a shock. So anyway, well, let's talk about 50 Marketing and talk about how we got here. I think that's the focus of today. So my role currently in the organization is one of more of the visionary. I'm supposed to, I guess, dream big and come up with the big ideas and develop overall strategy for the business. And John, maybe talk about what your role is as we kind of follow this EOS mindset.
EOS, shout out to Gino Wickman. Great process, great system. We are adopting it here at 50 Marketing. And so, Bella, your role is the visionary, of course, dream big, overall strategy. And then my role, of course, would be the integrator role. So I look at those strategies and try and transition them into tactical plans that our team can deliver. As you know, it's always a good challenge to take those strategies and those strategic visions and move them into actionable items. But it's what we do every day. We build roadmaps, we build our playbooks. We're building out our SOP library. And if any of the team is watching this call, they're starting to twitch a little bit because they know that this is what we do every day. So it's interesting and it is very challenging. But I think we, like Bill and I, recognize that it's really been a huge turning point for us here at the agency. And it's something that we're focused on and something that we view as vital to our growth and success.
Yeah, John, I think that's so right. When we look at how we've been able to scale what we do and how we've tested some things in the market over the past several years, we found product market fit, and we were able to then scale those up with operational efficiencies, with SOPs, with developing team members in seats to perform these functions so that we could bring things like video to our manufacturing B2B clients really effectively and efficiently. We could bring marketing automation, content marketing, demand gen, lead gen, social media, all of those things. The EOS system that we've implemented and that we continue to work on is really helping us deliver, I think, a world-class product and service and process to our clients. So I think we're obviously it's messy. We've done a lot of things entrepreneurially over the years, and just like any entrepreneurial venture, when you're trying to create something, it's a little bit messy. But we've learned to work through those things and develop a system that's really bringing the best out of our team members and delighting our clients. So, one of the things we want to talk about today, we've been asked to talk about, is the history of 50 Marketing and how it came to be. So I'll start a little bit with, I came out of college, came back to work for my parents in their family business. and they asked me to focus on the marketing department because they had done most of the growth up to that point through mergers and acquisitions, and we needed to develop a professional marketing and sales program. I was tasked back in 1999 with focusing on the marketing program. We built a marketing program, and this was during a time of massive upheaval in traditional newspaper, radio, TV, even trade shows, any traditional form of marketing. We were seeing the efficacy drop, and then simultaneously we saw the advent and introduction of the internet, followed by social media and those type of things. So we cut our teeth and got started early in those days. And John, I think we can all remember back to kind of what we called Hell Week back in that was in early 2000s, where we brought in 62 media companies
Mm-hmm.
in a 10-day period and renegotiated all of our contracts and everything we were doing with them. And that was kind of where we developed that contrarian philosophy about not the missing half, the John Wanamaker philosophy of half of my advertising is wasted. I just wish I knew which half. That's kind of where that came from.
Absolutely. I was already here when Bill, when you came back from college. So I'd finished up at Penn State and came back in same family company. And what was interesting for my experience is I was thrown right into more of the operations. There was a construction business here. We had some IT challenges at the time, and it was funny. I came in and sat down expecting to work mostly on engineering work and some construction, and it quickly morphed into many different aspects here of the family businesses that we were operating. So I remember working we had a furniture factory. I remember working there over one summer, Christmas break and spring break, trying to get some equipment online. So we had some retail and worked on consolidating all the computer systems. We had, I think, 12 retail stores, and they were all running independent systems. And we worked through consolidating that to one centrally hosted system. That was a journey in and of itself. Did some home building through the early 2000s. And so Bill, that was around the same period of time, again, when you came back from school.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of the focus on, a lot of the M&A activity you had mentioned was truly that, like acquisitions, mergers. I'm sure you remember, as I do, the summer we added 5 and moved 2. That was, I think I forgot that year. Just there was a lot going on that year.
Yeah, I think that was the summer of our discontent or something. I can't remember the reference,
Right.
but if the flashbacks are feeling uncomfortable when we went through
absolutely.
that process.
But at the same point, that's really when the agency was born, right?
Sure.
We had this huge, this nice consolidation of companies, businesses, and we realized that we really needed to tell our story, drive our business. And again, you mentioned bringing in all the ad agencies, not agencies, but the media vendors that we had at the time.
Yes.
Not nearly as many as are available today. We were still in the print, TV, cable, some radio, and
Absolutely.
those were largely the outlets that we had. And even then, we knew, some of this advertising is in fact wasted.
Absolutely.
And we could probably do an entire episode on the misses and some of the old ad spends we did. But
absolutely.
That's not why we're here.
Back in the early 2000s, we had a spend budget of about 1.5 million, and it was more. It was very diverse in its marketing mix, but a lot of it was consumer products driven around the John Deere brand, around the home improvement retail chain, and then around some of the sporting good business we had. So it was a different era. And John, your background probably aligns more today with what we do. So our focus and our niche is around manufacturing and B2B marketing. And your education, you came up through engineering school at Penn State.
Mhm.
Maybe talk a little bit about that. And then, you moved into probably more of the operations and manufacturing side of this business. Maybe talk a little bit about that, and how that impacts how you can add value to conversations with our clients today.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I went to Penn State, started at a branch campus in Altoona, and then moved up to main campus, State College, PA. Finished up there, and what some people don't appreciate is in engineering, you have a really broad base of a lot of disciplines, right? So you work through some electrical engineering background items. You work through like thermodynamics. You work through, in my case, organic chemistry. Of course, a lot of physics, a lot of math, a lot of stuff that just makes your head spin even today. But those who have survived and been through, it's like it's a group. We did survive it. It is a struggle to get through some of those coursework and classes, but boy, it just gives such a huge, broad base to be able to talk to, like our clients that we have today. My dad grew up he worked for Ford Motor Company in the production line. Came here to Pennsylvania, worked in 2 different steel mills, and then but actually has a teaching background. So growing up, go to work days. I mean, you want to see a process, you watch steel being melted like in front of you. That is a process. And growing up talking just, kitchen table, dining room table about just different production items, and, how work flows through production facilities. It was just what we did. My mom worked for BF Goodrich in Akron, Ohio. And we don't talk about it much, but she really climbed the corporate ladder for someone of her ability and experience. And she obviously left that. Kids came along. It happens. And
Happens to the best of us, John.
happens to the best of us. That's correct. And but no, I mean, so she has had a decent financial background, and I think she was assistant to the controller at BF Goodrich Global Headquarters in Akron, Ohio. So again, pretty proud of that for her. And again, whenever we were growing up, it was just that we had different discussions about what it means to kind of be in business, not from the ownership side, right, but more on the executive side, or more the executive support side. So yeah, then come out and come here. And basically, some of our clients, again, back to the furniture factory, we did an automation project in our furniture factory. Went from, power equipment, power tools, band saws, chop saws, table saws, and put in CNC router. So huge step for the factory at the time.
Sure.
Toured a lot of facilities, but being in that environment and kind of growing up in that environment, was very comfortable with it. And even today, we went and visited some clients in Ohio last summer, walked in the plant, they're cutting steel. They got overhead cranes running. They're welding, and they were just like, yep, I know all about this.
It's the smell, John.
Yeah, it was the smell. I mean, some people don't appreciate that, but it's just and also growing up in that environment, where you shouldn't be, and where you should be. So but no, just great being out and being in those environments again. Again, home building, job sites, construction. Did some light commercial work here at the family business. Built probably 250, 280 houses in the early 2000s. So know our way around the job site. know our way around quality work, inspections, the whole bit. And obviously, you have to have solid plans, or you're not going to move stuff ahead. So,
So, John, one of the things I think that's very interesting about your background and that really gives us an edge at 50 Marketing is we have experience beyond the technical and beyond the marketing theory and approaches. So I can specifically remember sitting in the parking lot of PCC Group in Pittsburgh in the South Hills. And I'm getting ready to go into a meeting, and I'm on my phone and I'm looking at what they currently do. And it said SOX and NOx, SOX and NOx. I briefly had a relationship with chemistry in high school. We courted for a couple of classes, and then we decided to part as friends. The teacher decided that was a great idea as well, because we were not a match to move forward. So whenever I saw SOX and NOx, I was completely out of my element. I remember calling you on the phone and saying, "John, what is this about?" And you explained, they're talking about destruction of whatever SOx and nitrogen oxide and sulfur dioxide, or
nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxides and components, and how they're pollutants. Yep.
So I think I was able to impress the potential client there, because we've won their business. We've had their business for many, many years, but I had no idea what that meant. And so your engineering background, when we deal with clients with like material data sheets, safety data sheets, technical documents, that has been a tremendous asset, because we have a lot of clients who are very, very technical in the items they manufacture or work with, a number of chemical producers, a number of people who've worked in different, whether it's energetics or laboratory field, those type of things. It's been very advantageous to have someone who knows as much about science and engineering as maybe some of the rest of the team knows about marketing and creative and the technical aspects of content marketing and those type of things. So I think that's been a really great asset to the 50 Marketing team. So when we look at one of the other experiences I think you had that is very, very important to adding to our experience and adding to our ability to deliver results for our clients is the period of time that you ran the John Deere golf franchise for, I don't know how many state territory it was. It was huge. But running that John Deere golf territory and then experiencing like the men's open and the support we provided to our client at Oakmont and those type of things. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about that experience and how it influences what we talk about as far as understanding not only what we're doing for a client in their marketing, but the fact that we recognize what it means to then deliver that final product because we've been there before, right? Like, I mean, you helped mow the grass for the open.
Yeah.
So we saw it the whole way from, here's the product that John Deere has that we need to represent the client to delivery, setup, service, support, to having whoever, Tiger or Phil or whoever, hit the ball. I'm not a golfer. So hit the ball off the grass that was cut in immeasurably small increments to facilitate positive golfing experiences.
No, that was, I can honestly say that working with John Deere Golf, the golf course superintendents, the assistants, the groundskeepers, the maintenance staff at some of these facilities were truly some of the best years of my professional life. And I say that just with all the honesty and all the enthusiasm I can give that. I mean, you want to talk about a group in an industry that has to, and I want to repeat, they have to prepare to win every day. You're talking about mowing grass to thousandths of an inch. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but these guys and gals, they're mowing 120 acres of grass to the open. So was privileged enough to attend the men's open in at Oakmont Country Club. And little did I know, just a few years later, we'd be representing that contract, and was at the Women's Open at Oakmont Country Club a few years later. And yeah, it was a very intense, but very worthwhile experience to be there. So I'll go through. I'll give a shout out. I maybe shouldn't, but the superintendent at Oakmont at the time, his name was John Zimmers. He was local here, somewhat to our office, just from up the road in Tyrone, PA. But I'll tell you what, that guy, his team was sharp, and they were his assistants. All the suppliers as well, right? We weren't the only group there. We had chemical suppliers there. We had volunteers there. Show up at 3 a.m., mowed and prepped the entire golf course, everything. There was not a square foot of area that was not prepped on that golf course before the sun came up every morning. And every piece of equipment was then prepped, sharpened if needed, any repairs needed, was parked for the next shift. In the evening, did the same thing all over again. And those groups taught me a lot about organization, because you wouldn't think it. You walk into equipment shed, it's like, oh yeah, here's some fancy mowers, right? Here's some bunker rakes, here's some tractors, aerators, blowers, all the components that they need to make this happen. But when you actually see how they orchestrate the work and how everybody has a task, every task has a detailed process to it. You don't just go out and mow grass. You go out and mow grass, that's it. That is not even close to what happens out here in these facilities and these golf courses. So no, but I think it was fantastic. And I, obviously talk a lot about Oakmont. Worked with Jason over at Fox Chapel, worked with some guys at the Pittsburgh Field Club. We had a 72 county territory with John Deere Golf. So we were Ohio, PA, West Virginia, and covered a huge geography. So no, it was a great time. I think you actually went to one of our facilities down in West Virginia.
Yes. Stonewall
Jackson Resort.
Yep. That was on the way to my in-laws for some type of holiday. And we stopped there with the kids. I think it was right around Christmas. So we obviously, and I wouldn't have partaken of the golf just because that's not my thing. But if I see a patch of grass that is like, it looks nice, I want to put a fence around it and put cattle on it. That's kind of my approach to looking at those type of things, not hit a ball and chase it. But God bless all those who like that sport. So
it was great. I do want to throw a request out there since we're recording this. We did actually line up during the Women's Open and the Senior PGA, and lined up all the mowers on the fairways. And we had, I think at Fox Chapel, we had maybe 13, 14 mowers going at the same time. Wow. At Oakmont, I think we had 22, 25 mowers on the ground. And they lined them up like you would see like in the Deere commercials with the combines running through the fields, right?
Sure.
But for golf, you don't see that kind of thing often. So if any of the supers out there have one of those photographs, I would love to have a copy. So reach out to us here, contact form, hit my email or whatever. Find me on LinkedIn in a couple of days because I need to update my LinkedIn profile. But love to have a copy of one of those pictures. So anyway, so that's just a personal request out there for the audience, I guess.
So John, that also highlights just how much we've seen marketing change. So sometimes when I talk about our history with the kids or with somebody, they're like, well, where are the photos? Where are all of the selfies? Where are all of the videos? And so you and I go back to a time in the prior century and just the turn of the century where, and the young people, if any of the kids are watching, we didn't have phones with 19 cameras on them, right? And all the availability. So like we actually had to pay somebody to come out and take pictures. So we don't have those things from our past. I would love to have some pictures of, I helped my father with some mining reclamation projects in my youth, running like D8 dozer, running some rock trucks, Those are things I'll remember forever because I'm still a little bit nervous when I think about what I did with that D8 and the one hillside that was basically vertical. And I felt like I was going to flip the thing, but uh, Dad said there wasn't a possibility of that. And he was right, but it still made me nervous. Well, when we look at our history, I mean, we have a lot of experience in manufacturing. We have a lot of experience with sales forces. You ran the golf sales force. I
Mhm.
ran a sales force as a sales manager for about 3 years, about 40 people. So I think that's another experience that's helped us understand how marketing and sales needs to work together because we can't operate in silos. The the path to purchase for these buyers is no longer that marketing just does some messaging and then you meet the salesperson at the trade show and then they show up. That model is dying. 86% of the buyer's journey happens online before the client contacts the company or the company salesperson, BDR, SDR, whatever title you give them. And the online buyer's journey has to happen. One of the things I think that many companies and many individuals are struggling with is if they don't understand the traditional buyer's journey and what we're trying to replace, it's very difficult for them to develop that online buyer's journey and meet those customers, those potential clients with the information they need when they want it, where they want it, and how they want it, because they don't necessarily know what that client is looking for. And when we look at the fact that we don't have those industrial sales reps who have 30 years of experience anymore to help us understand that buyer's journey and understand what we need to provide online, and then we have these younger generations who are doing amazing work, innovating and doing podcasts and producing reels and doing all of the modern things. We still have to get back to the basics of providing that information um, online in a way that they want to see it, how they want to see it, where they want to see it, when they want to see it, and making sure they then see us as that authority for solving their problem. So I think our experience with the sales teams helps us more rapidly deliver marketing results or marketing projects and marketing execution that is more seamlessly integrated with sales enablement for our clients than maybe some of our competitors or some other folks in the market. Um, John, when you think about product market fit for John Deere and the golf products, and then we were representing the manufacturer,
Mhm.
and then you had to send out that sales team. Um, what were the things they had to do that maybe we wouldn't do today that we would do digitally? I'm just thinking out loud about this. I mean, back then, I still remember the day we bought the brand new truck and trailer. It was sitting out here in the parking lot.
Yes.
We bought like three of them. And it
Mhm.
wasn't 15 minutes later, we won't name the person, Ken,
We won't.
who called and said he had already wrecked it and had
Mhm.
smashed up the tailgate. So the old way was drive the mower to the golf course
Oh,
and
yes.
let them
Demos.
demo it, right?
Demos. Yep. Demos. We hosted events. Um, I remember hosted events down at Nemacolin, several demo events locally here, not too far from where we are. Used to be, we went to Champion Lakes, little demo facility there. Um, and no, it was all about you had to get people in the seat, right? You had to take your process, your equipment, in our case, um, to that facility, and again, demo it on site. Trade shows, oh my word, trade shows. We had the local shows here, geographically Mid Atlantic shows. We had the National GIS show, which still happens, um, and that was a solid week. Right, you're preparing, you're getting the sales team ready. Okay, what are our talking points? What are the new equipment? Which, in John Deere's case, what equipment is in the booth that we have to talk about to our clients?
Yes.
And yeah, just a massive commitment of time and effort. And I'll say this: expensive. I mean, you spend a week in San Diego near the Gaslight Quarter. That's an expensive week. Same thing. You spend a week in Las Vegas. at the conference center there for GIS. Orlando, of course, we went to Orlando twice. And as you know, family and kids, you can't go to Orlando without adding some other activities to the stack. So, your 4 or 5 day golf trip extends into, to the GIS show extends into, oh, let's go down early and do this and the end and do this, which was great, great family time. But yeah, a huge commitment of time and resources and physically being on site, right? You had to press the flesh and show up with that equipment. Well, I'll go back to even some of our dealer days. I'll give you a shout out here. We did, and when we look at our retail locations for John Deere, early on, people would show up at the dealership having no idea. It's like, yeah, I just need a tractor.
Sure.
Right. And we started, we did the flyer development, and we started basically it was really an educational process for our potential customers as to what existed and features and accessories existed on those equipment options. And as they came to our locations, our sales team, I'm sure you remember this, would say, yeah, they come in holding this, our flyers or whatever in their hands. Like, I want this. And our sales team was like, that's fantastic. I mean, I can sell you that.
That was an early form of content marketing where we really, it was direct mail based. So we sent over 500 million pieces in that period. And we were educating the market, not online, but on mailbox, I guess, with that information. So it went from showing up and saying, hey, I needed a lawnmower to, I'm looking at these two models because of such and such options and these price points. And we really accelerated that buying process. And when you look at that, let's talk about that John Deere history. We developed a marketing strategy. We also developed a distribution strategy and an operations strategy that we tied together that allowed us to become the number one compact tractor dealer for John Deere in the world 7 years in a row with consistent double-digit compound annual sales growth over that 7-year period. And that was, when I look back at that experience and recognize that we had marketing and we had sales aligned, and we also had operations and distribution aligned, that was just an amazing period of productivity and growth because we were able to create that alignment. And I think when you look at what we're doing today and what we can help other companies do, is we understand that alignment needs to occur. If marketing's over here doing its own thing and sales is over here doing its own thing and the manufacturing capacity isn't there or the raw material supply isn't there, if ops can't execute, all of those things have to be aligned. And that seems so simple. But it's one of the things I observe as I talk to a lot of these potential clients and talk in the marketplace is that's usually what executives and management is struggling with, is creating that alignment. Also, right, we need product market fit, we need market demand, we need product market fit, and we need some other things to fall in line. But if you have a market demand and you have product market fit, but then you don't have alignment between those departments, you're not going to see success. And we've experienced that time and time again. Found a real nice run for those 7 years with John Deere that we really executed well, and they executed well on their supply side, which many times was not true of their product performance and their delivery performance. But during that time, it was very advantageous for us in our market. But yeah, I think when you look at those experiences and what we've been able to bring together, then, as we kind of shift not only from an alignment and from maybe a more macro sense of business and understanding it to down to the technical delivery of the playbook that we've developed over the past, we've been doing this for 18 years, but really the past 5 years, we've really dialed in this playbook and scaled it really, really well. I think we're starting to see this technical delivery that we're bringing in, this portfolio of marketing services that are a benefit to manufacturing and B2B service companies, that we would have really loved to have had at any point in time during our history of operating those businesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still remember I remember one of my first projects was cutting out little things and taping them on a document that was then delivered to one of the graphic design houses. This was like in '98. And then they did the graphic design work for a flyer. That's how my kids will be making fun of how old dad is. Kids, if you want to see something like that, it's at the Smithsonian. That's where it exists. And that's the only place you can find it, with the rotary phones we used to use. Well, the other things I think that are, and John, like you said, we could talk about a lot of these things for hours and hours and hours. And I'm sure many people would then pay for us not to talk about them. So maybe that's the angle. It would be,
that's our next marketing strategy there. Yeah. Yeah. This price level, this engagement gets you one conversation, but if you go lower, it gets you more conversations.
That's right. Our first podcast episode, Dennis Thomas, the CEO of Breck Bueller, said the worst part of marketing was talking to me on a regular basis. So maybe there's some type of trend we're recognizing in the market that's very important.
No, I like Dennis. Dennis, hit me up. We'll start a support group for those who have to talk to Bill on a regular basis. It is a growing audience. I'm sure we can we'll get some T-shirts made, come up with a nice acronym. So yeah, Dennis, hit me up. We'll get something started there. I love Dennis. He's a good dude.
So John, whenever we look at this conversation, and maybe we bring it back to where we started the conversation about our roles today. So as we think about the vision of 50 Marketing in helping manufacturers and B2B companies grow their companies, grow their initiatives with marketing, and then we think about your role in developing playbooks and the processes and the SOPs and the production ability of our group to execute that in an efficient fashion for these companies. That's, I think that's what they wanted us to talk about today. And then, we're all over the place. One of the producers is waving at me like right now. Oh, their point. What's this mean? Oh, okay. Wrap it up. I see. No, but I
think that's get back on track, Bill.
Oh, okay.
Get back on track, John. Yes. Stop talking about the old stuff. Start talking about how our experience, right, and how we understand supply chain because we live supply chain, right?
Yep.
We understand B2B. We understand distribution because we lived it, and are living it still today. So, I think that, Bill, I'll say this. I think that's really what kind of separates us from other agencies. Lots of talk, but honestly, we truly did live it. I mean, we lived. We know how to grow. We know how to grow a business. We did it. We know how to automate systems. We did it. We are doing it.
Yes.
And I think that's I don't know. Is that a differentiating point? Maybe. To us, it's just a reality. It's just our experience and what brought us here today, basically. And I think why. I think if we asked ourselves the question, we would say, yeah, we actually prefer to work with manufacturers.
Yes.
We prefer to work with B2B companies. We prefer to work with product distribution companies because we relate. We understand it. We get it. And we can have a shorthand conversation about supply chain, whatever, because we've lived it. So and we also know. Good.
No, I think that's right on, because I think there are many people in our space, and you watch other podcasts, you talk to other people at these shows, or you just kind of get the vibe from their YouTube videos, and they're very good at what they do, very technical, understand Facebook, understand LinkedIn, and in some cases are probably technically may have more proficiencies in some areas than we do, but from if you don't understand what you're trying to do and don't understand how marketing impacts sales operations, it doesn't matter because you're going to have so much variability. You're going to have so much of a miss. You're going to have missing half. I don't know. There's some way to tie that in, and I'm sure they'll tell me a way I could have done that better later. But there's such, you're going to miss so much if you don't have that alignment and don't understand how it impacts the entire process. So I think that's right on as far as one of the things that absolutely differentiates us in the market.
No, absolutely. And back to our Deere experience, right? I mean, we spent time in the stores, front lines with our sales team. We saw, okay, here's what we're saying from a marketing standpoint. Here's what sales needs from an enablement standpoint. And we draw the two together, right? We can go back and fix it in a couple hours. And in some cases, we've seen the other side of that as well, right? With a mainline OEM that doesn't always have that connection straight to the sales force, straight to the sales team, or straight to the people that needs to use that marketing sales initiative. And boy, when you talk about, you can have a miss, and you can have a miss in a big way. And, with timing these days, back to product market fit, you have to be on point when the need arises, because when your customer is ready, you need to be ready. You don't need to be ready like 2 days from now. That contact form comes in, that call comes in, whatever that touch point is with your potential client. You just need to be ready to engage, and because they already have, right?
Yes.
We touched on that earlier. Your client already knows more or less what your product is, or what you've told them your product is, or what your service is. And one, you need to deliver on it, but two, you need to make sure you're saying the right thing. So, communicate who you are and what you do, and don't have a miss because of, timing the market, whatever, but have your message down, have your strategy down, and just save time, right? Get closer to that transaction with your client, with your customer.
Well, John, I think about all these experiences and what we've been through. Depending on the feedback we get, I mean, they make me go out and do these podcast episodes. I guess I was the guinea pig, but I think there's a lot of value in these conversations. And this was a very broad conversation. I think in the future, we need to dial into some conversations about some very specific technical topics that would be valuable because we truly live it. So we're always talking about how do we have these goals and what we're trying to delight our clients with, and how we're trying to deal with our own production and operational efficiencies and integration. Because we kind of treat what we do on the production side of this business like a factory. I mean, we always talk about the conveyor belt that is moving from our client's need back, through our production line and back out the other end to deliver the results we want for our clients. So I think there's a lot of parallels there, and that's just another testament to the way we look at marketing, the way we look at processes. It's very much aligned with the manufacturing process.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And what's also nice is we have an amazing creative team as well, right? So we're not just numbers and zeros,
Sure.
Right? So we don't just like move stuff, etc. I mean, it's efficient the way we move it, but at the same point, I think we need to give a little shout to our creative team as well.
Sure.
They do some awesome work in that same vein. So
yeah, I don't know that they're going to be on the podcast, John, so we didn't have to mention them. So they're good. They don't like to talk on those levels. No, but you're exactly right, John. There's a process there, but the process allows efficiency so that then experts and artists and creatives and those folks can do their art, can do their process that is much more variable and has to have a lot more opportunity for variability and much more opportunity for creativity. And that's an important part of it. Well, now 2 people are pointing to their watches and one person is yawning in the producer seat. So I guess it's time for us to wrap it up. Well, John, thank you for being part of this today. I think This type of discussion will help our clients understand who we are, understand a little bit more about our backgrounds and where we come from, which is very similar to where our clients are most likely living today. And I think this will be very helpful in just kind of bridging a gap maybe between the marketing people and the manufacturing people, because we are both of them. And we understand that. So thank you for joining us today.
Not a problem, Bill. As usual, just down the hall, always willing to help. I'll find another way to get something else out of you since you got me on the podcast.
Yep.
So don't worry. We got our list here in the back pocket. We'll yeah. How about we'll talk about creative briefs maybe the next time.
Lovely.
And some of our detailed SOP processes. But no, this has been it's been a good chat. Long time coming, right? We're of course excited that we finally have our podcast series and episode up and running. And a big shout out to Mr. William here, because if he was not the host, it would have to be me, and that would not probably go quite so well.
Oh, it's all good, right? We all find our swim lanes and are forced into whatever we're forced into, reluctantly or not, by those the powers that be. All right. Well, thank you for joining the Missing Half podcast. We appreciate those of you who have listened in. Once again, we're discovering what's missing in manufacturing and B2B marketing. I had John McDowell with us, our CTO, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.